I'm Victor Fernandez of Fernandez Fit, and I'm here to show you why fitness is our business. Hello and welcome once again to the Healthy Lives, Healthy Business podcast, the show that helps busy professionals not just survive, but thrive in their demanding personal and professional lives by taking control of their health and fitness. I'm your host, Victor Fernandez. Thanks for joining me as you do each and every week. I truly appreciate it. Now, if this is your first time listening to the show, welcome, of course. But, if you've been around the block a time or two, listen to the show 2, 3, 4, umpteen times, do me a solid, make sure to subscribe to the show and share it far and wide, because many more people need to learn that fitness is our business. Now, I'm excited to bring on my next guest on the show, and really for many reasons. Most notably, her vast legal background and business experience, and her unwavering passion for helping people face and overcome life-altering moments. As founding partner of Everson Memic Law, LLP, she commits more than a decade of experience and expertise to upholding the belief her firm was founded on, that those facing legal problems need compassionate representation to fight for their pursuit of justice. And that's achieved through personal attention, meticulous representation, and open communication. Her primary areas of focus are personal injury law and estate planning, and I am a client of hers in that regards, as these areas encompass helping clients through two of life's most stressful events. She also enjoys working with small businesses and creating and protecting their dreams. And if you ask her nicely, maybe, just maybe, she'll wrap Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby for us, because I'm telling you, it's a sight to behold. So please welcome to the show, Alex Everson. Alex, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me today.
And I'm telling you, people, you have to listen to. I mean, you have to Google, if you follow our BNI group or me on social media, you'll be able to find it. Trust me, the video of her rapping just the other day, and it was honestly, it was really, really good. I'm not joking. It was really good. And it was eye-opening, because when you meet Alex, you don't expect rapper extraordinaire. So before we even get in, I have to ask, before we even get into the first question and really get into the nuts and bolts of things, where did the rapping expertise come from? Is that a lot of karaoke over the years?
I think secretly all attorneys love rap, myself included. And Vanilla Ice is classic, so.
That he is. That's for sure. Well, all right. So you'll have to look it up. For now, you have to take my word for it. So we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of things here. I've had the honor and privilege of witnessing Alex's presentations, including her rapping expertise, to our BNI networking group. So I've heard the story behind the course of events that unfolded, that literally hit home, that shaped the course of her legal career. Can you share that story with our audience? Because it's raw, it's real, and it just oozes passion.
I would love to. So, taking you way back in time to when I was in high school, my high school decided to put on this program, Teen Court. It was founded by a man named Judge Fred Steele. He was an amazing character. So back then, I didn't really realize it at the time. I thought that we fully got to have little trials as teens. But what would happen is Judge Steele worked out a deal with the municipal court for minors who had committed misdemeanor crimes and petty offenses. And he, instead of sentencing them to some sort of punishment, right outright, he developed this program, Teen Court, where they could go and have a quote-unquote trial, even though they pled guilty, and be heard and judged by their peers. So that's where I got my first real taste for law. So what would happen is we would get to represent these teenagers who had been convicted of whatever crime. And it was cool because we actually had a jury of all their peers, and I served as both prosecution and defense, and I loved it. So I was really interested in being a part of the law, and I really was interested in being a lawyer. I was also really interested in psychology. I always found that fascinating. I also volunteered at a mental health institution, and I loved that work too. So I didn't really know, graduating from high school, what I was going to wind up doing, but those were my two real passions. So when I was a senior in my graduation week, someone very close to me, we were redoing our patio, our back door patio, and they had ordered cement, and the cement was delivered and it came out kind of hard. My family member got a um, set of knee pads, protective gloves, everything that you would need to be able to deal with household grade cement. And so when the cement was delivered and it came out so bumpy, they weren't able to use the machine to kind of smooth out the cement. The driver actually added water to the cement to try to help it out, but it just made matters kind of worse. So my family member was in the cement really working with it. And that evening he goes and, goes to take a shower and his legs are completely gray. And we couldn't figure it out. It looked like he had almost elephant skin. We didn't know if there was like cement stuck to it or what it was. And he took off his gloves and his fingertips were black. So same thing, we had no idea what was going on, what was happening. And the next day he wasn't acting himself. And so took him to the hospital and found out that he actually had sustained third-degree chemical burns. And I saw him go through the surgeries, I saw him go through the medical treatment, all that comes with being hurt. I know there's a stigma around filing a lawsuit and what that means. And certainly he fell into that category. So, he did end up filing a lawsuit, and I watched how that all transpired. And it was quite the journey. It had quite an impact on my family. And seeing all of that firsthand, I really got to witness how significant it is to have to go through something like that. You go from being essentially normal and healthy and fine one day, then something horrific happens, changes the complete course of your life. And so not only are you facing down medical treatment, surgeries, and all that goes with that, you're also now looking at trying to make this right through our judicial system, which is a really big process in and of itself. And so my family member actually had started the case, and ironically, the case was set to go to trial the week of my college graduation. And, just seeing that entire chain of events really inspired me to want to go into practice law. I knew I wanted to help people just like my family member. And that's really what drove me to becoming an attorney and a personal injury attorney.
I know you mentioned just a short time ago about, how difficult it can be. Difficult it seems for somebody who wants to file a lawsuit, but just looking at it even from my non-legal perspective, it's got to be an overwhelming thought to think about. I mean, we watch these movies where it's the little guy versus the big corporation or whatever it may be, with the tons of attorneys with hundreds of years of experience behind them, and that's got to be a daunting process. Just to be able to process that information in your head and understand that it's not going to be something that goes 1, 2, 3 and it's done. It's something that it takes so much time over the course of many years to complete if we ever get to a resolution. For you, talk about the process of, I think we mentioned it in the intro about, meticulous representation and really being compassionate for the people that you're representing because of the life-altering events they're going through. What's that like for you when you have a professional case that you have to handle, that you have to, from A to Z, but also have the personal side of it because you know how important what this is to the people you're representing?
Sure. So I always tell clients when we do our initial consultation, and I'll tell your audience too, I think the most important thing that needs to be said about, first of all, looking for an attorney when you decide to make that step, is interview several. Because the reality of injury cases are, unless you're completely done with your treatment, you're going to be with that attorney for a long time. And so you want to make sure that it's somebody that you like, somebody that you can call and they'll talk to you. You won't get, kind of shuffled off onto staff. You always have a direct line of communication to your attorney. I also think it's very important, at least in my own firm, in my own practice, we make sure that every client understands what they're going through. Because just like you said, you stare down this kind of David and Goliath type of situation, right? And the client most times has never been through anything like it. So they don't know what to expect of the process. They don't know what things like discovery means or motions or, like they've probably seen shows with lawyers in them. But, they don't know real life what that looks like. And it's scary. It's intimidating. And so part of what we love to do is to really educate clients on what's going on and why we do the things we do in the legal process, what kinds of things they can expect. Because if I ever go into a situation with a client and they're not 100% prepared for that and what's coming to them, then I think I've failed. Because not only should they know and understand what they're looking at, they should also be able to feel comfortable and calm going into the process because it is already so nerve-wracking.
I know one key, and we've had discussions about this in the past. There's a professional component to all this, all the work that goes into it. But such a big part of it is the personal component. How do you? I have to imagine one of the hardest things to do is to show that compassion, to show that passion, but then also understand you can't walk into this case showing those emotions. You have to go in focused and professional. What's it like to have to really walk that fine line between the professional side of what you're doing and the personal side, that because you're dealing with human beings here?
Now, that's a really good question. So every client that we take on, I get to know, and I get to know very well. People who are coming in being hurt, we have to delve into their medical records. And so we start to know things that, very few people even know about them. And that's a really vulnerable place for them to be. And so I think truly being called counselors is it's a true title for us. And how you walk that line, at the end of the day, I always keep in the back of my mind that I'm kind of on a mission as I'm representing somebody. And so while the personal side always plays in, and, I think it's natural to get to know the client and, have that relationship with them. But at the end of the day, I'm their advocate and I'm there fighting for them. And so what really drives me throughout a case is actually the more that I get to know them personally, the more it kind of makes this like mama bear instinct kind of kick in. And it comes out in my representation through, really fighting the good fight for these people. And that's what it's all about.
100%. talk a little bit about, I mean, obviously for most people, when they finish law school, they pass the bar, they go and work for a firm. And the next step in that process is the business side of is learning what the business is like, what the business of law is like, and then wanting to venture out on your own and start your own firm. Talk about what that process was like for you to go from working for a firm to now owning and operating your own firm.
Sure. So I worked at a general practice law firm, and the really wonderful part about my experience there was I got to handle a lot of different cases. I would say every type, but you cannot do that. But I was handling things like bankruptcies, you know, corporate stuff. I was doing criminal defense work in addition to personal injury cases. So really the whole gambit. And so I got this wide range of experience that's really translated well into what I do now, because there are a lot of situations that I'll find clients in, and chances are I've seen that at some point in my career. But making that step from an associate attorney at a law firm to an owner of my own practice, it takes, I don't even know. It's this wild ride. I mean, like any entrepreneur, I think you finally wake up one day and you say, I think I could do this. I'm going to go start my own business. I think, we share that with any business owner, but in law, the difference is I think attorneys aren't necessarily business people. It's funny because we can set up corporations and LLCs and all of that. But we're not business people by trade. We're lawyers by trade. And I think we have enough of kind of an arrogance behind us that we think we can do this, no problem. And then we get started doing it, and it's a beast. There's certainly a lot to learn, and it comes at you right away. You have to do all these small things that you never really thought about, that you kind of took for granted while you were working with somebody else. And so it's quite a journey making that transition. For me, I was very fortunate to have a client base when I made that switch. And so I had clients right off the bat. That was very helpful, and I was very fortunate to have that. So it wasn't a difficult transition. I'd say the hardest part about it really was handling all of the things that I didn't even know that I needed to prepare for.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I still know that feeling to this day. 4 or 5 years later, there's always something new to learn from a business perspective. That's for sure. Talk a little bit about the philosophy. Really, it's the core of what your practice is, what it stands for. Can you expand on that? Just what the basis of how it was founded.
Yeah. So my business partner, Jasmina, practices family law exclusively. So divorce, guardianships, custody, and adoptions, everything in between. And I come, of course, from the more civil realm. And so, in merging those two practices together, we wanted to come up with commonalities so that, we had a vision and a mission for our firm and our practice. So we got together and really talked about things we wanted to stand for in general for our clients and what we wanted that mission to be. And so we decided that, one of the main things that we have in common is that our clients are all on this pursuit of justice, whether that looks like, coming up with a custody arrangement that works well for a couple that's no longer together, or whether that looks like an injured person who's going through this whole journey of, getting better and filing a claim and walking them through that, or, just somebody who needs help with an estate plan. They all have in common that they have this goal of us accomplishing justice on their behalf. And so we thought, but that belongs to our clients. That is squarely our clients. And it looks different for everybody. It's our job to fight for that. And so we came up with this motto: your pursuit of justice, our fight to make it happen. Because that's what we want to accomplish for every client that we serve, is whatever justice looks like for them. And that can even be in the form of something like an estate plan, where you wouldn't necessarily think that way. But ultimately what we're doing is we're making sure that people's legal wishes are carried out when they're no longer here. So that's what we really try to hold firm to, is to make sure that whoever we're representing, they're heard and their goals are accomplished.
That's awesome. I love to hear that, because sometimes that can get lost, and really in any industry, it can certainly get lost behind, well, just the business world itself. So let's shift gears a little bit, go more on the personal side of things. I guess, really simply put, who is Alex Everson, so the audience knows really what makes you tick, what makes you who you are.
Wow. Who am
really,
I?
180 right there, 180.
It's funny that my parents decided to name me Alexandria, because my name actually comes from Defender of Men. And even from a really young age, I've always just had this, I don't know, like, I don't know if you call it a need or what it is, but a huge part of me has always been helping other people. One of my very first sentences, I said, I would introduce my sister to people, and I would say, this is Nummer. Her name's Summer. I would say, this is Nummer. Don't hit him, don't hurt him. And I was just a weird kid. I think I've turned into a weird adult. I'm just kind of I think, you said you weren't expecting rap to come out of me. I think a lot of people look at me and think, okay, like, we have this girl pinned, or, but I think I'm very strange. I love, learning about different cultures, different people. I love traveling. I really enjoy the strange things in life and kind of experiencing all that life has to offer. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'd say overall, I'm just a weird duck.
Well, you mentioned obviously a short time ago that, when people may see you and they think they already have you pegged as to who exactly you are. Talk about what makes you different, what makes you strange, like you put it, or and what are the reactions from people? I mean, 'cause you had the room stunned the other day when you're pulling out, Ice Ice Baby. Because I'll be the first to admit I didn't see that coming, not at all. But again, it's one of those things where sometimes it's the old "don't judge a book by its cover," because what's inside is what matters the most. So talk about what's inside. What makes you, if somebody were reading your book, your life story, what makes you strange within those pages?
I think that probably the foundation of my strangeness comes from my parents and the way that we were raised. My parents are also very unique, and growing up, we would have different days where my mom would cook food from random countries, like, just to try it out. She taught us French just for fun. And my dad, he worked for UPS for most of his career, and so he would have some odd hour shifts. And I mean, he would probably kill me for saying this on air, but we watched Days of Our Lives together, the soap opera. And this was back in the day, where we had VHS, and so I would record it and cut through the commercials and then watch it with him when he got home. So I think, there's my parents just really exposed us to a lot of amazing things growing up. Like, we were taught from a very young age that everybody is just human. And so to me, it's just kind of second nature to like everybody and really see good characteristics in people and kind of hunt those down. Which sometimes isn't always the best thing, but um, I think that that's really what molded me into who I am today. Is they exposed me to all of those things. They also kind of let us have the freedom to be ourselves and to pick the things that we liked. So, I was always getting into stuff as a kid, like, from when I was little, getting into my mom's spices and trying all her spices. Now I have a huge herb garden.
It evolved over the
It
years.
evolved and spiraled. But like, they gave us the freedom to go and explore, and we did. We took advantage of that. Like, I was in dance, I was in gymnastics, I swam. Anything that I came home and said, I'd like to give this a try. What do you think? They would be the first ones to say, yeah, let's do it. Sounds like a good idea. So I think that having that sort of support and that, encouragement growing up really turned me into somebody now who does seek out the different in people and the good in people, and someone who appreciates kind of the strange. But I think that's probably where it all began.
Well, days of our lives. Now you're talking my language, because my godmother, may she rest in peace, when I was a kid, that's what that and General Hospital. I think Guiding Light was another one that she used to watch, and I used to go to her house after school because my cousins who were older than me, we all went to the same school for the first few years anyway. So yeah, that's how I cut my teeth on soap operas, was watching with her back in the day. So I guess that makes me strange too, and her too, which is all right by me. That's I have no problem with that whatsoever. Well, we know that, well, really being a business owner is stressful enough. Being in the legal field is stressful in its own way. How do you relax? How do you decompress? Especially when during the work week it's go 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 and there's a lot going on.
I really love, I think being in this industry and seeing all of the things that can go wrong and do go wrong, I think it makes you very, very cautious, but I also think it makes you appreciate life even that much more. And so, I try to take that with me into my downtime. I love decompressing, doing things like, being outdoors. I love being outdoors. That's probably the biggest decompression for me. I also love hot yoga. I try to get people to come with me, but nobody ever does. But I think it's great. But I love being active, and um, so anything outside or where I can be active, that's really my biggest decompression.
Well, I know this. I've never done hot yoga before. I have done yoga. It helps with what little flexibility I have. But I'd be willing to try the hot yoga, because if it'll burn a few more calories and sweat a little bit more, I'm always good with that. So we'll definitely have to try that.
I have a friend pass.
You have a friend. Oh, there you go. I'm your friend then.
Just let me know.
Absolutely, absolutely. For you, where do you? I mean, I know for a lot of us, we try to stay in the moment, especially when it comes to our careers, our business. But it's hard not to look beyond now. A year from now, 5, 10. Where do you envision yourself? In the next year, 5, 10 years from now.
I actually thought a lot about this. As a business owner, where I hope the business to be, I love being a boutique law firm. I don't ever want to be a giant because I think that you have to sacrifice, and, maybe you don't, but I think at least for me, having a switch from more boutique to a huge conglomerate would come with a sacrifice of the service that we offer. So I'd like to stay a boutique firm. I would love to have, a very healthy load of PI cases that we have helped, and clients that we've helped in that arena. I would love to, one of my missions as a business owner is, especially when you're talking about the personal injury realm, I think that it has such a bad stigma to it. And I think that we as lawyers are partly responsible for that. I don't think that, you know, I think that these claims are very serious and they should be treated with class and dignity, and they should be advertised with class and dignity. And so, one thing that I hope to bring to the legal industry is just that, and kind of change the way that people see these types of cases. When it comes to estate planning, I think we have a very unique setup for how we handle an estate plan, because we try to make it all encompassing of somebody's estate. And we've done this because I used to do a lot of probate litigation, and I see the places that people go wrong or they make missteps that lead their family and their loved ones into court litigating years after they've passed. So I would love to have that be something more widespread and kind of change that part of the industry. So business wise, I hope that we continue to grow. Industry wise, like in the very, very big picture, I hope that I do make that sort of impact in our field, because I think it's something that's really needed.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because and I wish I'd grabbed one. I have it in the other room so I could actually show it live. Is the starfish that you gave out after your during your presentation the other day at BNI. Talk a little bit about the symbolism behind what the starfish means.
Yeah, so the starfish story, I love the story. It's about this boy that's on the beach, and this guy sees him. He's kind of acting strange down the beach. He sees him doing something. So he goes up to him. He's like, "Boy, what are you doing?" And, this boy says, "Well, I'm throwing starfish back into the sea. The tide is going down and they're going to die if they're out of water." And, this man kind of looks at him like, "You little naive fool. Like, there's 1,000 starfish. Like, you're not going to make a difference. How do you think you can make a difference? Like, you're just wasting your time. Move on." And he looks at him. He throws another starfish back into the water. I always picture this happening very defiantly. And turns to him and says, "I made a difference to that one." And I love that story because that's really what I feel drives me is, I know I'm not going to change the entire world. It would be amazing if you could accomplish that. But I know every client that I serve is like that starfish. And my goal is to make sure that, whoever comes to our firm is the starfish that goes back into the water. And that's why I love that story, because it just resonates with me. Like, yes, I probably won't be able to have a massive, massive impact, but I know one person at a time can make a huge change.
100%. I love it. I love it. I'll have to post a photo of it, folks, so you can see what it looks like. My wife loves them, by the way, so she took both that you gave me. I was left with none. I have no starfish. She's like, "Oh, I
I
love
have
these," and
another
she walked
starfish.
away. She walked away. She was, "I love these," and she walked away. I was like, "Okay, I guess I have no starfish." So, But on that note, this has been awesome. I appreciate you being on the show and sharing so much about your personal and professional life. Like you said, you want to make an impact on a massive impact on people's lives, one person at a time, one family at a time. Share with our audience out there how they can find you on the internet, social media, all that fun stuff. So, because we all need legal help, but we all need your kind of legal help even more so, that compassionate, passionate side to it. So share with where they can find you and find their way to you one day.
All right. So I am very, very old school. Let me just preface this with that. We are completely revamping our website. And so right now, if you go to it, it'll just be Colorado only. But hopefully North Carolina will be on there here shortly. But if you just go to eversonmemiclaw.com, and Memic is MEMIC, you will be able to find us there. If you ever want to give us a call, our number is 910-622-3121. We will be happy to talk to you anytime, answer any questions you have if you're going through something. Those are really the best two ways to get in touch with us. We are creating a Facebook page. And everybody knows I am probably the most anti-social of media, but I am mending my ways. So we will be on Facebook and all of the social stuff. I am on LinkedIn. You can look me up that way too. But
it's a necessary evil.
It's a necessary evil, but give me a call. That is what I like the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been great, Alex. Thank you so much for being on the show. I know we've talked about it for a while, so I'm glad we finally made it come to fruition. I know there's more we can talk about every time. And I say this on every show, and I mean it on every show, where sometimes we just have a conversation, we forget we're even recording. It's just a friendly conversation. So I know there's more we could definitely discuss. So we'll definitely have to bring you back on down the road.
I would love that. It's been so much fun. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you to all of you out there for listening as you do each and every week. I do truly appreciate it. Once again, don't forget to like the show, leave a great review. We all love 5-star reviews. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And of course, share this show far and wide, because there's more people out there that need Alex, and there's more people out there that need to know that fitness is our business. Thanks so much for listening. I hope what we've shared on this show truly resonates with you. If you want to learn more about the health and fitness services I provide, head to my website, fernandezfit.com. If you're ready to connect with me about health and fitness coaching, send an email to info@fernandezfit.com or a text to 814-504-7774. And of course, you can find me all across social media, Victor Fernandez 123 on Facebook, Fernandez Fit on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as the Healthy Lives, Healthy Business channel on YouTube. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, always remember, fitness is our business.